Hello again. As I said before, I'd only intended to post my start day video today, but got a couple questions. I figured I might as well go ahead and answer them. Ekim Dow, I believe that's how you pronounce it. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, please correct me. I'm still working on your question. I'm just waiting to hear back from some people, and then I'll have an answer. I promise, it's coming. Really. It's on its way, don't worry. The questions I wanted to answer today were from Recoli and rocket number 09. The first was from Recoli, who wanted to know the origin of my name, BigRiggBlues. And you are half right. It does come partially from the Blues Brothers. As for the rest of it, it comes from a high school nickname. Back when I was a senior in high school, in study hall they basically let the seniors do whatever. We could talk as long as we weren't making a lot of noise and disturbing the other students who were pretty much required to study. How we got away with that, I'm not quite sure. But essentially, there was this guy. Everyone called him Lucky because that was his last name. Nobody called him by his first name, which... honestly, I don't remember his first name at this point. Sorry. Anyway, this guy, he came up with all of these little stories around people's names. He had one for himself, but in no way had anything to do with his name. It was something along the lines of living in a trailer home, drinking beer, and then building another trailer home beside his trailer home out of beer cans. He had an odd sense of humor. For me, the joke was based on my last name, Riggins. R-I-G-G-I-N-S. Well, he took the first syllable, Rig, and came up with the name Big Rig. His joke was that I would grow up to drive a semi-truck around the United States. My big rig. That kind of stuck as my nickname in the small group in that study hall. However, it wasn't long before the entire senior class knew about it. Some people I had never spoken to all of a sudden knew me as Big Rig. They didn't know what my real name was, they just knew me as Big Rig. Now, sometime when I was, I believe, a freshman in high school, I discovered the movie The Blues Brothers. I was a real big fan. I really loved the movie. In fact, a friend of mine and I, we had the suits. We had black suits, black ties, we had the Ray-Ban Wayfarers, and we had some hats that looked about right. I wish I still had the hat, it got crushed. On an occasion or two, for a special event at our church, we dressed as the Blues Brothers. Hence I decided to take the name BigRiggBlues. It's simple, but it has a story. That kind of leads into the second question from rocket number 09. He asked what my 5 top favorite films of all time were. Well, quite obviously, The Blues Brothers is first. I own 2 different versions of this on DVD. And this older version, I also own in 2 different versions on VHS, which I bought about the time I first discovered the film. I've always loved this movie. I love the mayhem. I love the comedy. But I also love the music. This movie pretty much made me into a blues and soul music fan. Also, the sequel, Blues Brothers 2000, led to my discovery of my now favorite band, Blues Traveler. But moving on. Another favorite movie of mine? We gotta go to a different genre, to horror. The Evil Dead. This is the Book of the Dead edition. I'm not sure if you can still buy this anymore. It was kind of a, I believe, a limited release, but it looks like the book from the movie, the Necronomicon. Love this. Discovered this movie in high school. And my friends and I, we had running gags about, the crazy lighting that was just spotlights in the middle of the woods for seemingly no reason, and fog that came out of nowhere for just as little reason. Yeah, we loved this movie. For another favorite, it's a movie that I have to say I have a soft spot in my heart for, and that it's a romantic comedy. The Quiet Man. Well, more just a romance movie than a comedy, but it has comedic elements. Now, if you've never seen this movie, at first you're basically going to say, oh, that's a chick flick or something like that. You haven't watched enough of this movie. Now, it starts out with the obvious love story between, John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara's characters. Well, it ends with their getting married, but her brother doesn't want to pay the traditional dowry. At first, John Wayne's character doesn't care. Sean Thornton, he's a former boxer. Well, she cares. And it leads to this huge and hilarious fight. If you haven't seen this movie, you need to see it just for the fight. And you'll probably take something away from the rest of the movie, too. As anyone who knows me knows, I'm a comic book fan. The best comic book movie ever made was Spider-Man. Sam Raimi directed this film, also the director of The Evil Dead, which you saw earlier. This is the only comic book movie I have ever seen to perfectly capture the characterizations of the characters. If you haven't seen Spider-Man, are you living under a rock? Watch this movie. Oh yeah, and X-Men sucked. X-Men 2 had promise, but still sucked. X-Men 3, Anyway, moving on to my other favorite. Again, a horror movie. Halloween. Now, if you're going to buy Halloween on DVD, this is the version to buy. Don't buy that 25th anniversary edition. They really screwed it up. Basically, if you see it in this version or any other previous edition before they cleaned up the video, Michael Myers, he doesn't just come around a corner and kill you like Jason would have. No, he basically fades out of the darkness. He just forms out of nowhere, which is basically what John Carpenter really intended. This movie is the ultimate slasher movie. I'm not big into real slasher movies. I'm more of a suspense movie fan, old Vincent Price movies mainly. But for modern horror movies, this is probably the best you can get. So there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed. Check out those movies. See you next time.